The governor wants to see compressed natural gas fueling more fleet vehicles, including state-owned cars and trucks. This administration also strongly supports congressional renewal of the production tax credit for wind. It's the same bipartisan position as our congressional delegation. Wind is the second largest energy resource being developed in the US right now. It works exceptionally well on the power grid, especially in partnership with natural gas, a resource that can be efficiently cycled on and off according to electricity demands. We continue to move forward as well. This month, we're embarking on rulemaking hearings to consider improved regulations for managing the distance between oil and gas drilling and homes and communities. We're also developing a statewide rule for groundwater sampling and monitoring near oil and gas drilling sites. We're doing that for two reasons. One, to ensure that any possible impact to groundwater supplies are caught and caught early, and also to just provide additional assurance that our rules successfully protect our precious water supplies. We're going to continue to champion safe development of natural gas. We're going to help build markets for this gas by encouraging its use in heavy-duty trucks and public and private fleet vehicles. We're marrying it with our wind energy to provide flexibility and diversity on the grid.
We have world-class energy. We have some of the best wind, solar, geothermal. We also have abundant oil and natural gas. We have an exceptional array of expertise here. When you look at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, combined with the School of Mines, Colorado State University, CU, and there are others, but we're unique. Not a lot of states can boast all of those things that work together in an organized fashion. A little bit about our generation mix. There's where we were in 2000. You can see we were about 80% coal, 16% natural gas, and then renewables, hydro, and other up at the top. And 2010, the picture shifted, and you can see 68% coal in 2010, 21% natural gas, and the renewable pie opened up. So that's really good news for us. With the passage of Clean Air, Clean Jobs, I think we're going to continue to see, that the coal go down, the natural gas go up, hopefully the renewables expand. In 1998, the installed cost of solar PV was about $11, and in 2010, this price was declined to $6.20. In 2012, Colorado introduced a bulk purchasing program through Sustainability USA, which decreased installed PV costs to $3.90, a 65% decrease. Our Energy Efficiency Resource Standard passed in 2007, House Bill 1037, set up an energy efficiency standard for 5% reduction in 2006 peak electricity sales by 2018. In 2011, the PUC increased the requirements, and we know that for every dollar spent in electric energy efficiency programs, ratepayers earn $2.78 in benefit. With 6,000 jobs just in Colorado from the wind industry, and they're good paying jobs, they're clean jobs, and they're not, they're typically are in the areas that need those jobs the worst. It is so important that the rest of the country look at the Colorado delegation, the bipartisan effort they have put forward and said, we need this. It's good for jobs, it's good for energy diversity, it's good for national security, and it's the right thing to do economically and business-wise. Recently, Colorado fell from 12th in the nation on energy efficiency to 14th. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, what you are, that is unacceptable. And I don't think anybody would argue with that. So how do we get back to where we were? And I would argue 12th place isn't great either. We should be in the top 10, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be. One of my biggest pet peeves is hearing from folks in our industry that renewable energy is a partisan issue. I can tell you that having worked on these issues on a nationwide basis in some of the states that we all would probably consider to be fairly conservative states, it absolutely is not a partisan issue. I know that the messaging around it probably leads folks to believe, and certainly voters who don't have, the luxury of sitting in on these detailed conversations that we all do, but they think it's partisan because of how it's messaged. And I think it's up to us. We need to own this in Colorado and take away the partisan messaging around renewable energy, and let's drive it back to energy security It's good for our environment, and it's sustainable.
Are you thinking about bringing in nuclear energy, and are you helping to develop new reactors and more efficient nuclear energy, if you are thinking about that at all?
Our office is not working on nuclear or figuring out ways to bring more of it to the state. But let me tell you why. It's largely, I mean, we can't even take credit for it. It's because the folks in Colorado have overwhelmingly said that they're not ready for nuclear, or that they don't think that Colorado's the right place for it. Now, having said that, we have a lot of uranium in Colorado, which we know is key to it, to the production of nuclear energy. But I can tell you that that's not an area that we are focused on right now.
Modeled transmission expansion, generation expansion, with a target of achieving 80% of the electricity generated in the United States from renewable resources, just to see what happens to the system when you model that. And what we found was that it was possible. We found that there were multiple pathways to getting to that future, so it's not just one solution that will get us there. And that getting there is consistent with the production capacities that we have in place today. We have enough wind turbine manufacturing facilities, enough PV manufacturing facilities to get us where we need, to get us to an 80% future. They just need to be utilized. Transmission is essential. In order for this future to be cost effective, you have to be able to get the most productive wind, solar, geothermal resources to market. Right now, those best resource areas exist in places where there isn't sufficient transmission to bring it to market.
This is NREL's assessment of what the various renewable technologies are across the nation. So let's just work on a couple of them here. Solar, concentrating solar, they estimate 37,000 gigawatts. Solar photovoltaics on the left or right-hand column there, 80,000 gigawatts. Wind, 10,000 gigawatts. So what? What do these numbers mean? Well, a helpful fact is the U.S. peak load is 800 gigawatts. So every one of these numbers is 10 and 15 and 20 times the size that would be needed.
The transportation side seems very kind of the hardest nut to crack at this point. I think I just finished working with the state of Connecticut on the state's energy strategy, and there was really no interest in pushing the needle forward on transportation, and I think that's a challenge in a lot of states. And although there are kind of interesting and new technologies that are coming into the marketplace, they're not really at the price points that many of us can access. And so I think the question is, what can we do to try and accelerate cost reduction so that these vehicle technologies can be more widely accessed?
Our participants to date are over 84 government buildings that are in the county. We have 20 new on-site solar systems in public buildings and large-scale solar firms. And you can see the rest of it. We're involved in 109 commercial businesses, and the number of homes increases every month.
And typically in Colorado, when we need additional water, we've gone and looked to the western slope, because in Colorado, 80% of our water resources fall on the western slope in the form of snow, typically. 80% of our people live on the eastern slope. But we're probably coming to the end of a lot of extra water in Colorado, and not only because we have 5 million people and we have 5 more coming, but also the fact that we're seeing some changes in climate that may make it hotter and drier, and so we may not have the supply in the Colorado that we've traditionally had. Pumping is a big cost of handling water, and that's whether you're pumping it long distance or if you're just pumping it around your system if you have to. Whether it's pumping that goes for supply or pumping that goes to the wastewater treatment plants, there's certainly a high cost of energy. It's been estimated that in California, the electric grid there, 20% of the electricity produced in California goes to the conveyance of water or handling water on a statewide basis. And water is a commodity. It's, the use of it is private property right. And so our prior appropriation system protects those people that put the water to a beneficial use first. And so they become the highest in priority. The issue I think you're referring to on the farmers in Weld County that could not use their wells was because when you pump a well, depending on where you're at in Colorado, oftentimes you have to augment it, or you have to put water to mitigate the injury to the river that your well might cause. And in the case of these farmers, they didn't have adequate augmentation water. They pumped their wells for only for a short period of time until they ran out of their allocation, and the river was low also. And so the nuances of water law and water availability certainly impact agriculture. If you don't continue to put that water to a beneficial use, you can lose your right to use that water. But in the case of that farmer that's more efficient, that water goes to his neighbor or the downstream canal companies that have a right to those return flows. And so we are still looking at some things. We're seeing more people use drip irrigation and plastic and some things like that to minimize the evaporative losses. And so we're looking at ways that agriculture can get some benefit and to incentivize being more efficient, because that water still stays in the system, so to speak, and so there are other benefits to other users.